If a Department of Defense intelligence agency, like the NSA, DIA, the service intelligence agencies, Army Intel, were to target American citizens for their political views and collect on American citizens, is that in violation of the law?
Senator, the answer to the question has to do with the role of the Inspector General. I believe that the General Counsel at the department would be better able to address your question.
But let's say the President of the United States tasked them to wiretap people who were attending the No Kings rally in Detroit, Michigan. Would that be legal for the intelligence community, the DoD intelligence community, to target American citizens for their political views?
Senator, I appreciate your sentiment and your concern, but it's not within the remit of the Inspector General
but
to
it's
make legal
law,
determinations.
right? Mr. Moore, thank you. Can you tell me, as the Department of Defense Inspector General, the position you're nominated for, you just went through that you'd uphold the U.S. Constitution, you would swear an oath to the Constitution of the United States, right? Correct?
Yes, Senator.
And to uphold the laws of the United States. You're a lawyer, but IGs don't have to be lawyers, but both as an IG, but as a lawyer, uphold the laws of the United States.
Yes, Senator.
So I'm concerned about, in September, the President issued an executive order tasking the Department of Justice to come up with a list of domestic terrorist organizations. He gave a very broad definition of what domestic terrorist organizations were, including descriptors like anti-Christian, different views on the family, religion, and morality. There's also reports that the Department of Defense is participating in an interagency weaponization working group made up of people from Department of Defense, from the CIA, Department of Justice, FBI, IRS, to go after the President's adversaries or enemies. As the Inspector General, you would be expected to, flag issues of law and investigate, deeply problematic issues. If a Department of Defense intelligence agency, like the NSA, DIA, the service intelligence agencies, Army Intel, were to target American citizens for their political views and collect on American citizens, is that in violation of the law?
Senator, my answer
just press
to
your mic if you could. And maybe it's just over here. I can't.
It's lit.
It's on. Okay, got it. Sorry.
Senator, the answer to the question has to do with the role of the Inspector General. I believe that the General Counsel at the department would be better able to address your question.
But this is just about law. I mean, I understand that the IG isn't the one making those legal announcements. But if you learned that intelligence agencies were wiretapping American citizens because of their political views, is that in violation of U.S. law?
The Department IG only conducts oversight with regard to the department. And if your question is limited to the department, it's possible that the Inspector General may have a role in determining whether or not those agencies followed their own policies.
But just this is an issue of law. I mean, imagine, so let's say the National Security Agency, which does wiretaps, SIGINT, and I'm a former CIA officer, work with them all the time. Let's say the President of the United States tasked them to wiretap people who were attending the No Kings rally in Detroit, Michigan. Would that be legal for the intelligence community, the DoD intelligence community, to target American citizens for their political views?
Senator, I appreciate your sentiment and your concern, but it's not within the remit of the Inspector General.
But it
to
is,
make
it's
legal
law,
determinations.
right? I mean, I think in general, and I would hope this would be a bipartisan thing, that the idea that our intelligence community, of which I was a proud member, would be turned against American citizens because of their alleged political views is as fundamental to who we are as anything that I've seen come before this committee. And I want you to say, separate from what your remit would be, I want you to say publicly that we're not going to turn agencies like the CIA and the NSA and all these things against the American people. And you are the last line of defense. You are an IG, quite literally, overseeing conduct of the department. So if the intelligence agencies were asked to surveil American citizens, what would you do? Would you open an investigation at a minimum? Would you push back at all? Or is it just okay now? And God forbid, right? God forbid that this is just kind of the way we're going to be. The president says these are domestic terrorist organizations, and so we're now surveilling American citizens because of their views. I would hope my Republican colleagues would find that just as repugnant as me. I want to hear you say that you know that that is against not only the law, but our values.
Senator, I really appreciate your concern, and my sentiments are with you, but it's not my role to have personal opinions. I'm guided by the facts and the application of the law to the facts.
Well, I would just say it shouldn't be about your role. It should be about who we are as American citizens and what we do with our government when we turn it against people. And I yield back.
This exchange between Senator Elissa Slotkin and nominee Mr. Mooring matters because it brings into the open a fundamental question about what kind of country we want to be, one where intelligence and law enforcement tools protect democracy, or one where they can be turned against people for their beliefs. Slotkin's line of questioning is blunt and urgent because the stakes are constitutional, 4th, 5th, and 14th Amendment protections, and civic. If the state can surveil or punish citizens for political views, our democracy is hollowed out. Slotkin starts from a concrete set of facts that everyone should be tracking. The administration recently issued a high-level national security directive and an executive action aimed at countering domestic terrorism and organized political violence. And it also announced a process for designating domestic organizations. Those documents expand the agencies and authorities that can be mobilized, and they leave open a broad question about who gets swept up. This isn't abstract. There are real memos and policy moves that contemplate coordination across the DOJ, FBI, JTTFs, Treasury, IRS, and parts of the intelligence community to investigate and disrupt politically violent actors. That new architecture is exactly why Slotkin asked whether the Department of Defense's Inspector General would stand as a check if those tools were misused. Her legal point is also simple. Constitutional protections don't stop at ideology or geography. The 4th Amendment bars unreasonable searches and seizures. The 5th guarantees due process. The 14th promises equal protection. If NSA, DIA, or other defense-related intelligence offices begin collecting on Americans solely because of their political views, that is at least a massive constitutional red flag, and likely unlawful under existing statutes and norms. That is the legal backbone of her line of questioning. Surveillance and targeting of citizens for protected political activity is not only dangerous, it is legally fraught. Legal experts and civil liberties organizations have warned that framing political movements or ideological groups as domestic terrorists without clear statutory and evidentiary thresholds risks chilling free speech and enabling politically motivated enforcement. Slotkin also tests the practical limits of the Inspector General role. An IG's power is real but circumscribed. IGs audit, investigate, and report on departmental wrongdoing. They can open investigations, issue reports, and refer matters for criminal or administrative action. But they don't make criminal charges or set policy. They react and expose. That's why Mooring's answers, saying his role is fact and law-driven and that the IG's remit is departmental oversight, matter, but they are also unsatisfying to many. The public wants not just a promise to follow the rules, but a strong, proactive commitment to push back if agencies start weaponizing their tools. Slotkin is asking for a plain-spoken refusal to let American intelligence be turned inward against citizens. That's not theatrics. It's a test of whether institutional checks will be vigorous enough when politics pressures them. There's also a political and historical dimension Slotkin is drawing on. Democracies that permit security institutions to target dissidents or political opponents rarely stay democratic. The fear of being surveilled for holding a political belief is a tool of repression. It silences speech, throttles organizing, and shifts the cost of dissent from persuasion to personal risk. That's why the question, "Would you open an investigation?" carries moral weight. Americans expect their oversight officials to be shields, not gatekeepers for political abuse. For viewers who want to turn concern into civic power, here's what actually matters right now. First, demand clarity. Call or write your senators and ask whether they will insist that any national strategy to counter political violence includes strict statutory standards, independent judicial review, and explicit protections for political speech and lawful protest. Second, insist on transparency. IGs should be empowered and resourced to audit cross-agency task forces and to publish unclassified findings promptly. Third, support organizations that litigate and document abuses. Civil rights groups and watchdogs are the ones who bring patterns into daylight and force real remedies. Finally, know your rights. Public awareness about what surveillance and collection can and cannot lawfully do is an essential deterrent to abuse. Slotkin's pressure is not partisan grandstanding. It's a constitutional alarm bell. Nominees and oversight officials must demonstrate more than procedural compliance. They must show institutional courage.